Hello and welcome to yet another session at J Champions Conference. Here today, we have a great pleasure of having Michael with me. My name is Rustam, and I'll be your host. And the speaker for today, for this session, is Michael, that will be talking about Developer's Guide to Jakarta EE11. To all of you on the stream, we would love to hear your questions, to hear from you, and um, please feel free to use the chat and put them into the stream, into the YouTube stream, and then I'll be jumping into the stream and asking the questions. And that's enough from my side. Take it away, Michael.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rustam. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody out there in television land. So this is a developer's guide to Jakarta EE11. And the Jakarta EE has a rich history, starting, of course, with JavaEE. And as you can see, all the boxes that are appearing, basically going back to 1998. JPE was the Java Professional Edition. And then along the way, each of the new specs or new releases of Java EE, originally called J2EE, as you can see, you had things like the Java Connection Architecture in 1.3. 1.4 introduced JAX WS, the Java API for XML web services. And that's Java EE 5, introduced things like the EJB 3.0 spec, the Java persistence architecture, Java server faces. Java EE 6 introduced the concept of the profiles that we know today, the platform, web profile, and the core profile that was introduced in Jakarta EE 10. Also, things like CDI was introduced, JAX REST, speed validation in 6. And then in 7, we had WebSocket concurrency and batch. So all of these specs now, had the Java name in front of it, but had to be renamed. And you'll see the names as we go through the presentation today. Some of them were somewhat renamed to make things more modern. So the red box in there, we'll talk about that. It's not fully released yet, but there are plans for Jakarta EE 12. There is a Jakarta EE Future Directions group that just started meeting a couple of months ago. I'm happy to be part of that, and we'll be discussing, what do we want to see in future releases of Jakarta EE. Everyone's invited. If you're a Jakarta EE developer, I can send information on how to join that. So my name is Mike. I am a Java champion, and all these things that you see here is what I do in retirement. I worked for ExxonMobil for 33.5 years and retired about 18 months ago. And so this is my passion. This is what I do every day. So it's good to be part of the Java community. All right, enough about that. So I've already discussed the evolution of Jakarta EE. We'll talk about Jakarta EE profiles, the road to Jakarta EE 11, what's new, and then overview of the updated specs with some demos at some point. This will take the better part of the next 3 hours, if that's okay. No, I'm only kidding. Anyways, I have a poll here. This is, of course, is for more suited for an in-person presentation, but if you like to put in where you are in this poll, I'd be interested to see if anybody here is, what the heck is Jakarta EE category. But in any event, go ahead and do that if you have a second. And all right, so now let's talk about the Jakarta EE profiles. So there are 3, and I touched on these in that first slide, and we'll talk about those individually. And essentially, it's the platform itself is hosting all Jakarta EE applications. Now, that should be specifications, but there are 42 specs that's part of the Jakarta EE ecosystem. Only 30 are actually part of the platform, and that is all depends on the status of each spec and where they are, that kind of thing. And then there's a whole process for getting onto a certain certain release. All right, so talk a little bit more about that. So, and this is, of course, for developers who want to use all the Jakarta EE specs. You can see them right there, right? So you see in blue, these are the specs that have been updated. But you see in orange here, it's Jakarta Data 1.0. And this was recently added to the profile sometime last year. To the platform. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So there are other specs that are being considered for Jakarta EE 12. For example, Jakarta NoSQL. And yeah, but anyway, this is all contingent upon the spec leads and where they what they want to do and in terms of providing updates for a certain version. The web profile basically is a subset of the platform, and of course, as the name implies, as for web technologies. And these are the I forget how many there are, 23, I think it is. Yeah, so this Jakarta Data, of course, is part of that, right? So, yeah, so it's and then there's a few that haven't been updated. All right, the core profile. This was first introduced in Jakarta EE 10, and this is basically designed for smaller runtimes, like your microservices. It's good for the cloud and all that, and so it's that kind of thing. And there's only a set of, I think, 7 of these. So you can see where it makes sense that these are in the core profile, for developing cloud applications. All right, so we took care of that. Now let's talk about how we got here. The first milestone release was just over a year ago in December of 2023. The second and third milestones were in April of last year. The fourth milestone was in June, and the core profile was released in December of last year. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And the platform and web profile releases are scheduled for sometime this quarter. And there are all the specs have been updated, and we'll talk about that in a second. Here we go. The current status. All those 16 specs have been updated and passed their respective reviews, along with their passing the TCK. And what some people might say is just another delay. It's not that really. Yes, it's a delay, but there's a good reason for it, a very practical reason for it. The TCK has been needed modernization and restructuring for quite some time. They were using, let's see, I think it was Ant, and then it's being migrated to Maven, and then Test Harness to Archillion, and there was a heavy use of Open Rewrite to get that going. So since the core profile only has 7 specs, it was easier to have a couple of compatible implementations. That would be Open Liberty and Wildfly, if I'm not mistaken. And then I know there's some movement to do the review of the web profile sometime soon. So you can follow Ivar Grimstad's blog post. He posts at least once a week, if not more. And he has a lot of, provides usually on Sunday mornings updates on that. So. All right, so yeah, we took care of that. All right, so this is just what's overall new in Jakarta EE 11, and then for each of the specs, I'll talk about what's new in that as well. So new specification, which I already mentioned, is Jakarta Data, but you might be saying, Mike, what the heck is this MicroProfile JWT bridge? This is a new spec that's still being worked. It'll reside under the auspices of the MicroProfile specs, and this is a way for Jakarta security and MicroProfile JWT authentication to work together, and I think I have more of that. There's a removal of legacy managed bean annotation. This is in favor of having a consistent CDI across all the specs. And of course, references to security manager have been removed. As you may know, in JDK 17, the security manager was deprecated, has not yet been removed, but for JDK 24, I believe it's one of the JETs that will permanently disable that. I have to double check that, but 95% sure of that. And also, CDI Lite is a new concept, and this is basically just separates out, the documentation and just to make it, just to split out the integration related into specification text, and basically this solves a circular dependency problem. And also optional features with these three specs. There hasn't been much development in them with the SOAP with attachments and web services and XML binding. I'm not sure what the future holds for them, but I can try to find that out. More support for Java records. Of course, I think that was final in JDK 16. So, these specs here, the expression language, persistence, and validation support that. I believe there is an effort for some other specs to support Java records. And then, of course, naturally, Jakarta concurrency and now supports virtual threads. And as I touched on before, interoperability between MicroProfile JWT authentication and Jakarta security. This basically evolved from working for the two working groups to work together. And I'll touch a little bit more on that. So, all right. So the specifications with demos. I'm not going to do all of them. We definitely will be here all 3 hours, right? So this is the first set of specs that with their new version number, right? Jakarta faces the asterisk there means that they intended on releasing a 5.0 with breaking changes, but the spec leads felt as if they couldn't get that done in time. So they went from a 4.0 to a 4.1. So, and then here's the rest of the specifications that are being updated. All right. So I hope folks know who this is. One of my favorite comedy actors. But if there's any questions at the moment, Rustam,
there are no questions yet. There was a comment that it was more of a comment to when you ask people to see if they're in what category they are, and there are some people said that they would love to hear some basics of Jakarta and they didn't know what it is, and I think you're doing a good job so far. But I kind of promised on your and on also a bit of my behalf that we can point them in the right direction if they want to. But I think after this presentations, everything will be crystal clear, I guess.
I hope so. So yeah. All right, appreciate that. So this is.
Oh wait, there is a actually there is a sorry there is a question that just came in. So SOAP and XML web services are removed? Question mark.
They're not. Well, the specs are still there. This has to do with the optional features, and if you read the verbiage of optional, it's basically it's any individual spec can have optional features. So that means certain parts of the spec don't have to be implemented. And this was the case with MicroProfile as well. One vendor didn't want to implement the metrics spec. I'm not going to mention who that is. So they went to micrometer instead. But So that's the kind of thing here. So we're trying to crack down on some of these optional things here, so to avoid some of this, right?
Awesome.
So yeah, and then dependency on Jakarta XML binding spec was removed from RESTful services, and things like this. So that's wise. Now, again, I don't know what the future holds for these. I'd have to really, reach out and talk to the spec leads on this, but that's where we are with that.
Great.
I hope that
Thanks.
answers your question. So this
no
is Rodney.
So far, I think. So then I'll just hide myself again, and I'll be back at some point when there are more questions arrive.
Sounds good, Rustam. Thanks. So yeah, this is Rodney Dangerfield. He's one of my favorite comedy actors, as I mentioned. So and I'll spare you my imitation. So anyway, the demos here, I'm going to use Payara Payara server, and also there's the Payara cloud services, right? So this, of course, is subscription based, so that there is a 15-day trial. So just wanted to mention that. So here's MicroProfile JWT bridge. It's as I mentioned before, it's a collaboration between the two working groups. And the intent is to develop, for Jakarta security to build on MicroProfile JWT authentication, right? And this is supposed to eliminate duplication of effort, that kind of thing. I know, so there were some things going on, and of course I expressed my opinion on some of this stuff. And so there was a Jakarta config spec that's being created right now. And I'm like, well, why do we need to do that when we have MicroProfile config, right? And because it works really well. But there were some really practical reasons for creating config. So that's being worked, and there's I think the folks are working to have that part of Jakarta EE 12. So the same kind of thing was going on in the summer of, was it 2023 or last year? Maybe in 2023. And then, so everybody was working together, and this was basically what we developed. So I think this is a cool thing. I think this, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, as it were, I think this is a good compromise. So that's just my opinion. But yeah, but I think, like I said, this is a good thing. So yeah, as I mentioned, it's a work in progress. I need to follow up, but I know I think they want to try to get the spec ready for MicroProfile 7.1, but that's to be determined. 7.0 was just released, I think, in November of last year or December. So to be determined, right? So stay tuned. And then this is obviously a cartoon on how this all works together. So yeah, so you can have your, basically security on one end, MicroProfile on the other, and then have this bridge. And it's basically just one annotation, as this nice short name here describes. And then first work is to move the optional section of authentication to the new bridge. So basically taking some from the original JWT authentication spec and move it there. And the annotation looks like this. So you have all these parameters that you can pass into it. It's my goal to have a working demo of this. So in the GitHub repo that you can, that I'll share with you and experiment with, I have a JWT application, right, that generates the key and then automatically builds a run file to use it in the whole thing. And then, but you put these interface around the class, or I think it's a class, and then to try to pass in and have it work that way. So that's the intent. Again, it's a work in progress, so I'm sure things will change. But I think this is good stuff, right? All right, just a refresher for anybody, MicroProfile 7 that just came out at the end of last year. You can see the updated specs are in orange, and the other ones have not been in there. It's still using Jakarta EE 10 for the core profile, using the core profile, right? And then there's the standalone specs. And you may have noticed, for those of you who are very familiar with MicroProfile, the metric spec is now standalone. And so that's been taken over with telemetry, because telemetry not only provides the tracing, but metrics as well. So, and there was an open tracing spec, as you can see on the right. Again, that was one of the part of the core specs early on, and that changed, I think, with MicroProfile 6. So, but yeah, so it's again 7.1. I'm not sure exactly what time frame they're trying to get that released sometime this year. So stay tuned for that as well. All right, so let's get to the into specs. I might go through this kind of quickly. These slides are available from my website, and we'll do a few demos, and we'll go from there. So Jakarta annotations basically is just a collection of the annotations that you will use in all your Jakarta EE applications, right? And so roles allowed is one of them, for example, and those that you would use in security. Basically, that's at the end of that. So and what's new in that is the managed scenes annotation was removed, because it's been deprecated. The current version is 3.0, and then a Glassfish 8.0 milestone 3 is the compatible implementation. So you can tell, they're up to milestone 9 right now with that, the Glassfish guys, and which is Omnifish, and they, but yeah, so they've been maintaining Glassfish, for the last few years. All right, authentication, right? And authentication and authorization, they work with Jakarta security, right? So it's obviously for authenticating a user, right? Let's see. All right, so what's new there is the minor updates to support the overall goals with Jakarta security, some clarifications around state concurrency. And then you'll see this a lot. References to security manager class have been removed as we go. 3.1 is the new version. And again, you see Glassfish is a compatible implementation along with Eclipse Epicyro. Jakarta authorization. The same thing. It's, once somebody has been authenticated, this is basically a way to define, okay, Mike, what are your roles in this application? Usually it's somebody, admin or user or those kinds of things, right? So, and what's new in here is a way to future-proof the specification, make it more suitable for cloud. And there's a way to standardize the context ID for servlet containers. All right. Also, what's new? New convenience methods to make the API easier to use, and of course, the security manager. Version 3 is the latest, and Glassfish 8 milestone 5 and Eclipse Exousia, I think that's how you pronounce that, is the other one. And I know sometimes these get updated on the website. It's on the Jakarta EE website on each spec. For that particular version. So, all right, Jakarta concurrency. Basically, it's using virtual threads, right? Provides a mechanism for using concurrency, right? Essentially, right? Integration with virtual threads, support for the Java Flow class, and for the MicroProfile reactive stream operators and MicroProfile context but propagation specs. If you notice that before, those two specs are in the standalone set of specifications from MicroProfile. All right, so there's been an effort to replace some of the features from EJB. For all intents and purposes, that's been deprecated. The schedule annotation was updated, or maybe it was the lock. So schedule needs to be done, so there's still some work going on. So I would anticipate a new version of concurrency for Jakarta EE 12. All right. And there's a way to become more CDI centric. They're going to take advantage of things like the managed executor service and context service interfaces. Version 3.1, the latest, and Open Liberty 24, the June edition, is the compatible implementation. So I have a demo app with that, which basically was sort of derived and just adapted from the set of Jakarta EE examples, so you can take a look at that. All right, context and dependency injection. All right, so this has been around a while, right? If you ever use the inject annotation, there's a context annotation as well. So this is the way to inject, objects into your application, right? All right. So what's new? Adding methods to the Bean configurator interface, applying decorators, and support for the priority annotation on producers. All right, latest version 4.1, and Weld has been a long-established compatible implementation of CDI. This is the version 6 beta 1 for that. All right, Jakarta Data is new, and I have a demo on that, and we can go through that kind of, once I get through these parts of the slides. So if you can think of Jakarta Data as a sort of as a hierarchy, you have Jakarta Data as I'm going to use the base class and derived class metaphors here. So Jakarta Data can be considered a base class, and then it would work with Jakarta NoSQL and Jakarta Persistence as sort of your derived classes, just to kind of visually understand how this is going to work together. So there are, the annotations are the same, but they are a little different. So you'll have the entity annotation to declare an entity for databases, along with the column and ID annotations, but there are also others here. And then there's this repository interface where a lot of this stuff happens, right? All right, there are supports for CDI extensions. There's a new basic repository interface that has, as the name implies, some basics of find methods or find by methods, those kinds of things. There's also a data repository, which is empty, so you could just add your own find by methods, right? There's also a CRUD repository, which I think extends from basic repository. And we have all these new annotations for inserting, updating, deleting, and saving. And so yeah, it's a lot of good stuff in here. And it's a subset of the Jakarta Persistence query language. It's right before we had everything finalized for version 1.0, we came up with the Jakarta Data Query Language, or JDQL. So basically the same idea of that. So, all right, 1.0, of course, is the final version. And then Open Liberty and Hibernate are the compatible implementations. All right, so here's the live demo. So we'll shell out of this real quick. Go to here. So this is a Jakarta EE 11 repository that I have for you to experiment with, and yell if something's obviously wrong, or that kind of thing. So so here's so I have the JWT bridge, and we'll look at it real fast. And this was adapted from Luis Neto from Payara, who came up with did this demo back June of last year, and it automatically generates a key, and then you can use that or the token, I should say, not a key. You can use that for authentication. So yeah, but yeah, so that's it. You take a look at that. what I did, I added a way to generate the run sh file here, right? The shell to actually to add in the new bearer, the new token. So that's kind of fun. But this is the one that I would actually try to do where you actually, have the implementation of that JWT bridge. So here in Jakarta Data, we'll look at this kind of quick. All right. So those who know me well know I'm a craft beer enthusiast. Okay, if I see you at a conference, I'll be the first to buy you around, right? So what I have in this MongoDB database, so this is actually it's Jakarta Data, but we're doing a NoSQL database. So I have a beer class, right? You notice the usual entity ID, right? Any kinds of things, and some restrictions here, right? Not blank, so it's using some validation. Just your simple POJOs, right? And we have synonymously, we have here the brewer class, same kind of thing, and we have your resources that provide the endpoints, right? A service, same kind of thing there, right? So you inject the beer repository and brewer repository here, and then here's the main class, right? We inject each of the services, although they're not being used. You can see IntelliJ here. Yeah, there's more way to skin a cat with these things, right? So, and I shouldn't say that because I have 4 cats, but one's sleeping back there, so I hope she didn't hear me. So in any event, yeah. So this is the whole thing right here, right? It's also a beer type that I use as an enum, to list the different types of beer like ale, stout, porter, etc. And so let's run this, right? And let's see. Just don't pay attention to those. Yeah. So. All right. So we'll start from scratch. We're going to use Payara Micro here. So I'm going to redo all this, right? And then package, and then we'll start my Payara Micro script. It's using Alpha 2 of Payara 7. So yeah, so that'll run. And of course, the demo god hopefully will be with me here. And let's see. Now, it takes a few seconds here. All right, don't mind that. The exception still works. There's Payara's been working on getting things finalized for Jakarta EE11, so they know about it. So yeah. All right, so basically you can still use localhost here, but this will be the URL. And all right. Okay, so all my demos have this splash screen at the beginning, with the logos, right? So, and then, relative to each one is, so I have this, this is nothing too exciting, just says welcome, to the, but this here is where you see, the results of all the beers I have listed, right? And then you can do the same thing with brewer, all right? And you notice here I have the Red Lick Brewing Company. This is a pipe dream of mine that, in retirement, but yeah, you never know, so. And then, he can do, obviously you can, get a single instance of that by passing in the number, right? That kind of thing. So we can add to it, and then let's go. I have to go here, don't we? No, we don't. Yeah, we do. I should have had that ready. Sorry. All right. That's for portfolio. Portfolio. There we go. And then Jakarta E11. Okay. All right. So then there is, I'm going to add here. So I'll show you how to do this real quick. There is a, where are you? Add script, add shell, right? And it's going to just, we're going to use the curl command, and we're going to do a post and add everything into the database that way. All right. So All right, so let's run that. So it doesn't say dot slash. Oh, add. All right, there we go. All right, so you can see here that we've added in a Red Lake Brewing Company in New Orleans. All right, and then it's in Louisiana, of course, and it's a New Orleans Mardi Gras stout that I come up with, right? And should have added the other stuff, right? I should have added both. So let's take a look. Let's refresh. Brewer. And as you can see here, we got a Red Lake Brewing Company in Flemington, which is where I live, and then New Orleans right here. So, and then in the beers, you should here say, okay, yeah, the New Orleans Mardi Gras stout. So, and then to delete, we're going to delete those as soon as, of course, we wouldn't want to do that necessarily, but just for demo. Oh, there it is. Delete. Yep, we'll delete. Basically, you use the delete verb, right, in curl, and do the same thing. So we'll do that. Okay, and then let's see, should it be updated? And yeah, you can see that the Mardi Gras stout is gone now. So yeah, that's pretty much it with that update. I have not experimented with that yet. That is on the list to get done. So, but this gave you a good idea on how to use all that. So, all right, let's get back to the 10:37, right? Oh yeah, it might be 3 hours. No, I'm kidding. All right, expression language. I have not had a chance to experiment with this yet. I'd like to, but I can give you the description here. It's a simple language to meet the needs of the presentation layer and web applications, right? Oh, that's interesting. That's almost, oh, I see, I know, that's just a continuation, okay. What's new in that is the module called Java.desktop is no longer required at runtime, and there's a new property called length that is now supported for arrays. So current version is 6, and Tomcat 11, milestone 18 is compatible implementation. And I'm not sure if I've seen a lot of references to Tomcat this time, where I have not seen them before, like in Jakarta EE 10. So, and then Apache Tomcat 11 was finalized, I think late last year. So that's it's a GA version now. All right, Jakarta Faces. You know, those of you who've worked with the old Java server faces, this is now the Jakarta EE version of that, right? So this is a model view controller framework, you know, for UI. And it's formerly known as Jakarta Server Faces. So, you know, when the transfer happened from Oracle to Eclipse, they called it the Jakarta Server Face and then decided to shorten it to just Faces. Okay. And new is some new firing events for Jakarta CDI, and then deprecate the unused pre-destroy custom scope event and post-construct custom scope event class. 4.1 is the latest version, and Glassfish 8 and Eclipse Mahara are the compatible implementations. Interceptors. This is yeah. I'm kind of, it's another one I haven't experimented yet, but I think I understand the concept. So you can interpose on business method invocations specific events such as lifestyle and timeout events. These are the kinds of things you can do with that. I may have seen some examples that have used it in there, but again, I need to study that a little more. So. So what's new there too is updated dependencies that align with Jakarta EE11 and a standard overloaded get interceptor bindings method on the invocation context interface. All right. 2.2 current version, and then Weld is also a compatible implementation for that. All right, pages. All right, formerly known as Jakarta Server Pages, and of course, back in the Java EE days, this was Java Server Pages, and of course, we all familiar with using this back in the day, and then of course today, right? And this is the template engine for web apps, right? And then basically, I think a lot of times you would use that with a Jakarta servlet. There's an updated error data class to support new Jakarta servlet constant field values. So you got things like error query string and error method. So this is some new enums that you can use. And any code that was deprecated as of an older version of Jakarta Server Pages 3.1, they have been removed. Okay. 4.0 is the current version, and Apache Tomcat milestone 20 from version 11 is the compatible implementation. Jakarta persistence. Now, if you look at the spec page on this, the the number of updates it's just extremely long, right? Obviously, not going to mention them here, but of course, if you've used Java or JPA as they called it, right? Back in the day, then this is basically, the Jakarta version of that. And as I mentioned earlier today, this was support for Java records, right? And then new methods added to some of the classes that you can see written right there. And there was a migration to the java.time API. So they spec leads deprecated the use of Java calendar and Java util date, Java SQL date, right? And those classes. And if you look at the Hibernate blog, which is in.relation.2, if you go back a bit, Gavin King actually had a blog describing in full detail why they made the change. So, all right, 3.2 is the current version, and then Hibernate, of course, they've been a long time implementer of this spec, and then also Eclipse Link. RESTful Web Services, of course, the old Jakarta REST, right? This is, of course, for basically following the representational state transfer architectural design pattern, right? There's a new convenience method, contains header string, and then a get matched resource template added to the URI info interface. And my REST app actually uses that. So I think, yeah, if you used any kind of application server, not just Pyara, but also Wildfly or Glassfish, an older version, you'd get a runtime error if you tried to use that and running it with those older versions. So, so there's that. There's new TCK tests, and again, the deprecated managed bean annotation, and then the dependency on the Jakarta XML binding spec were removed. Current version is 4, and then REST Easy, I think, has been also a long time implementer of this, and then Eclipse Jersey, also another long time implementer of this specification. And yeah, I have a live demo. Okay, that's good. That's good for REST. REST, yeah, I can rest after this presentation. So let's see. All right, let's close that. So like I said, I wanted to do some new stuff in these demos here. And where do they have it? In the application? I forget, you think I should have reviewed this before, right? But maybe it's in the source. Nope, that's not it. It's in here somewhere. No. Well, let's just run it. And I think if we have a minute, maybe we'll run Pyara server. We can do that. And let's so let's see. Yeah. Bin server, and let's use the Oh, there we go. Iris 7 Alpha 3. Yeah, Alpha 3. All right. Okay. You can have a few versions that have that I experiment with all the time. So Alpha 3 is the latest on this, and then it's still the start domain. Okay. I don't have anything running, do I? There's a little barf if I do it. Oh yeah, hold on. Okay, let's hope I stop that in time. If you try to run if you have Payara Micro running and then try to start, Payara server, that's not a good thing. I think they're using the same either memory space or. All right, what do I want here? Localhost 4848. Okay. So you see this is the latest right here. Pretty sure it works with this one. Takes a few seconds, but you get this way you get a chance to see the administration console here. Sorry, I don't have a song and dance routine to keep everybody entertained while this is loading. All right. Okay, so yeah, under applications, I have one here. So it moved on me. There we go. Okay. So I have a REST here with December 19th, so that should be good. All right, and then you get a different URL here, of course. All right, so yeah, so it does work. Nothing exciting here, right? Of course, it's just defining REST endpoints, okay? And I inject the cloud. So here's the just the matched resource template with that new method, and it just returns /REST. So I'm sure you can use that information somehow in your applications, right? So so it's good you had a chance to see this as well. Okay, running on that, so you can see I've done a few of these already. So okay, let's go back to. I have technically 12 minutes left. Right? All right, Jakarta security. So yeah, this is obviously this I think this came out with JavaEE 8. I'm not 100%. If I'm somewhat certain on that. So obviously it's for security. You have multiple authentication mechanisms, right? And then you can do some, you can use those for that. Qualifiers for built-in authentication methods, and of course references to security manager have been removed. 4.0 is the latest, and Glassfish 8 milestone 6 and Eclipse Soteria 4 are the compatible implementations. I have a demo. I can just show it to you. I know it's just I'd have to start up Glassfish for that, which I could do, but maybe at the end if we have more time. So try to get here's Servlet. Obviously, if you've used Servlets, it's pretty much the same thing, right? You have your HTTP requests and responses, right? What's new is there's some new status codes that have been added, like the 301 and others. I think I have them listed here somewhere. Let's see. Okay, yes. Status code 301 is moved permanently. 302 is found. 303 is see other. I think these have already been existing, but now that Servlet supports them, right? And let's see, and then of course security manager 6.1 is the latest, and Tomcat 11 milestone 20 is the compatible implementation. We're getting near the end here, folks. Let's see. Validation is, of course, this was formerly known as bean validation. Right, this is a way to apply constraints for certain things, right? For like your feeds, for example, right? The example I have, I experiment with putting my application at me as an age, maybe whatever else, or those other attributes, and I put myself as 13, but which was a long time ago, but the constraint is over 18, for example, right? And I mentioned that it was formerly known as Jakarta Bean Validation. I think the URL is still Bean-Validation. So support for records, right? Updating dependencies. 3.1 and Hibernate Validator has also been a long time implementer of this specification. But yeah, I do have a demo real quick for that. Let's see, you can show you where that is in here. All right, so I had the user originally, but this is a regular Pojo, as you can see, right? And then a record. So now I have the record in here, and I have my constraints, right? So the let's see, well, working is a Boolean, whether I'm working or not. A size and about me must be between 10 and 200 characters, right? Age should be not less than 18, and email should be in a format here. So of course I put in stuff that violate some of these. And let's see, and then there's the application. Basically, it's the all right. So let's run that. Since we have I'm sure we had that on here. I haven't done much here with this, so let's launch. All right, there it goes. Hang on. And that. All right, so just the endpoint here. So the user record, right? That's right. I put my name as null, so that can't be, right? Name must not be null. And then, of course, the application has, why it validates, or I'm sorry, why it violates those validation rules. All right. So yeah. So that's the, just a very simple demo on that. So. Let's see. Okay. All right, we're down to near the end. WebSocket. Oops, let me put that in presentation mode. Okay. Right, this is an API for client and server endpoints, right? And when I studied this a little bit, apparently there's a way to describe the way, I guess, you can ping, you can always ping somebody, right? There's always that, when you want to reach out to somebody, you say you ping them, right? But then I guess pong must be a response. So that was cute, ping and pong, right? You got a new method that returns the WebSocket session, right? And there's a clarification on the max method size attribute. And then the value cannot be larger than integer.max value. And again, security manager. 2.2, the latest, and you have Tomcat and then Eclipse Tyrus that are compatible implementations. That's that. Let's see, resources. There's links to these, I believe. Well, the Jakarta EE specs, and then I mentioned Ivar's blog post. It's called #Jakarta EE. And Arjan Times, who is one of the spec leads for Jakarta security, he's also involved in Jakarta Faces. Right? So he, his presentation basically was kind of interesting because he kind of grouped the specs into what they're, what they do. So you have security and security authorization and authentication as one grouping, and so on, that kind of thing. So it's into categories. These are my example applications, and Luis, as I mentioned before, he provided at the Payara virtual conference in June of last year. If you want to get involved, contribute to open source. It's a great way to learn about things, about a particular project. you know, it's a great thing to do. And there tends to be, and I don't know if that's still the case, that people think you have to contribute code to do open source, and that's not true. You know, people really appreciate things like improvements in documentation, for example. All right, you know, those kinds of things. So those, you know, you can do that. I had a script from Micronaut about 2 years ago or so, and for some reason it didn't work on my side, and I studied it, and I was like, oh, well, here's the change, and then it worked. So I, you know, contributed that, and they accepted it. So it's just, you know, stuff like that, and this is what makes open source so cool. So and share your own Jakarta EE experiences. You know, if, you know, you can present at the Jakarta Tech Talks. There's, you know, the Garden State Java user group, right? So if you're in the New Jersey area, you know, please reach out to us and that kind of thing. And then I mentioned here Tanya Obradovic. She's the Jakarta EE program manager at the Eclipse Foundation, and I thought this was cool. Seed, right? This is what, you know, what we do, and so I thought that was a cool thing. So many people to acknowledge, right? You can see them on here. These folks have helped me out in some way, shape, or form, you know, various things here and there, and I can't thank them enough for their time and their talents in helping me out and getting things, you know, to understand certain things if I have questions, or, you know, what the, you know, that kind of stuff. So this is my contact info. The portfolio page on my website has the slides. And there's the GitHub repo at the bottom. My email is mike@redlake.net. Yeah, MP Riley is my handle on Twitter. And yeah, so you can contact me that way. And oh, this was from the holidays. I thought this was cool. This was from one of the Omnifish guys, all right? So the holiday toast. So yeah, fun stuff. And then thank you. So I hope this was useful. And Rustam, are there any questions?
Let's see. I don't see any questions. I see a comment on the previous question about the XML. Let me highlight that. So we'll just show that. That was the comment about the removal of XML spec and all that. So I don't know if you want to comment on that. If
okay, yeah, I don't see it. I'd have to stop sharing.
Oh, it's on a sorry, it's on the screen. So
right, yeah.
I can read it for you. It's fine. I can read it for you. I've asked before because I worked at a company that mixed Spring and J2EE annotations, and XML is and it is XML centered. So not having XML could be an issue.
Yeah. It's if you can see my screen here, we can look at some of these. So
yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, I think some of these, there's some of these specs that have not been updated since Jakarta EE 8, for example. And so this was one of them, right? Jakarta XML binding. So there was an update for EE 10. And yeah, I think it's just the implementation of the optional features. I think that's the main issue. But I got to try to get some more guidance or you know what that is. Yeah, I know a lot of times these changes are made, and you know it unfortunately it breaks things, you know. But let's see. But you can find out all the information on this website here. So what else? GitHub. Oh yeah, this is basically the GitHub repo of what you just saw on my IntelliJ. You know, this is a work in progress, just so you know. Okay, so you know, there's little things I need to update READMEs and make sure everything is, you know, is everything perfect in my mind, right? So, but you know, those kinds of things. So yeah, if you have any comments, or do you want to do a pull request, or you know, help out, I would certainly appreciate that. And but yeah. Other than that,
Yeah.
I guess
Apart
we're
from
good,
that, there is
right?
a bunch of
Yeah.
thank yous, so I can bring up some of
Ah,
you. So I hope I don't forget anyone. If I do, please forgive me. So there was a thank you to Michael for this comprehensive presentation. There is another one. Thanks for your time, Michael and Rustam. And there's more thanks. Let's see. So Marco is asking if it is possible to put the links in the chat. I am not really sure.
oh,
You can try.
oh, can I do that? Let me
You
go
can
to the
always
YouTube
try to
page.
go to YouTube and
No,
do
wait.
that. And if not, then we can also ask people to ping you, I guess, on
I can do that, yeah.
on
But let me try
social
to do
media.
that now.
Yeah.
Let's see. Go to the schedule.
And
I
while
go to
you
the
do
YouTube page right
that,
now.
while you're doing that, I'll show some more messages. So there's
No.
more thanks to you and a good understanding of Jakarta from this talk. That's really great. Oh, there is actually a question. Let's see.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. I can see it now here.
Yeah, now you can see them, right? Now we can also see you in infinity loop. So you just so you know that.
That's a scary thought.
But yeah, so okay, Jakarta EE has advantages of a Spring. My company used old-ish Spring, so how do I sell Jakarta EE instead? It's a good question.
Right.
It's always fun.
It's an age-old question, and I'm not going to forget about the links. But yeah, so Spring is using Jakarta EE in the background, right? Spring Data, right? So a lot of people ask this question: why is one better than the other? I don't think one is better than the other. Spring, I believe, is an awesome framework. Yeah. So, but yeah, I would continue using Spring if you want. But if you want to use full Jakarta EE, there's no reason why you can't change over. But again, it's the latest versions of Spring, like Spring Framework, Spring Boot, are using or support Jakarta EE, at least Jakarta EE 10 at this point, and also JDK 21, I think. So yeah, you can't, right. So Jakarta EE is used in the background. Let's see, go to the GitHub page.
And a little comment from my side. If you want to show something on the screen, please let me know. Then I can switch your screen back on.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going to put in the chat here.
Oh, okay, cool.
GitHub,
okay, then I will not. So I'll just keep us on the screen.
Privilege,
So when it comes to showing some technology better of something else, if you really want to do that, I would just start with building a tiny little proof of concept and see if it actually works the way you want it to, and try to convince it this way. It's like, hey, look, it's faster, better, whatever it you think your theory or your thoughts are, that the way it might be better for you, then you will just try test it and see if you can build a POC, proof concept, and show it to whoever makes the decision. I guess that would be my kind of, and I mean, again, that can be any technology, but what I would suggest is try to keep updating it, whatever you're using. If you're using Jakarta or Spring or anything else, try to keep up, because new features, new things, new bug fixes, even new bugs, if you're that way inclined,
Yep.
All right. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So folks, last chance to ask questions. I don't see anything in the stream right now.
So who's next here? It's we got Bruno Borges, Secrets of Performance Tuning Java on Kubernetes.
All right, amazing.
I'll let you folks go to that. And again, thank you very much for taking the time to not only just my talk, but for participating in all the talks. I've seen some familiar names in the chat from yesterday and today. So thank you all for making this happen.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us, and thank you very much, Michael, for doing this talk for us. And there will be more talks today. There will be 2 more days of J Champions Conference next week as well. So feel free to check out the schedule, subscribe to all the streams that you want. You can actually even use the reminder button on YouTube. So knock yourselves out, and we'll see you around somewhere around the globe at some kind of event, or digitally, or one way or another. Enjoy your... Yes, go ahead.
Real quick, I just saw a comment from Marcos Garcia, and he mentioned some nice archetypes from Adam Bean. And yes, Adam is awesome. Definitely follow him on his airhacks.tv. And yeah, there's some good stuff. He has a, it's called WAD. It's a shell, I think it's been a while since I've used it, but it's a useful utility, I think, to switch deployments or something like this. Yeah, if you might see this. So, and then I hope to see folks at either DevNext or Jakarta 1 coming up in March.
Awesome. Again, thank you all for joining. Thank you, Michael, for doing this talk for us, and see you everyone. See you around.
All right. Take care. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.